Hello, I'm Julianne, facilitator and trainer of the Killaby Inquiries and the Unfindability Inquiries. And I've been asked to record some information about the Unfindability Inquiries. So here we are. I'm going to make a few separate recordings. This first one will be on the Unfindable Inquiry, and then I'll do a separate one on the Anxiety Inquiry and a separate one for the Compulsion Inquiry. So first, what are the Unfindability Inquiries and what is unfindability? The Unfindability Inquiries are the original inquiries that Scott developed many years ago. They were originally called the Living Inquiries, and they include the Unfindable Inquiry, the Anxiety Inquiry, and the Compulsion Inquiry. Now, unfindability is based on the premise that whatever we believe to be real and whoever we take ourselves to be, usually some type of separate self, is ultimately unfindable when we go looking for it. So unfindability is the process of looking for something that we believe to be inherently true or real. These inquiries help us see through any identification that we have as a separate self. Now, in the Unfindable Inquiry, we're usually looking for a deficient self of some sort. We believe we're not good enough, or we're broken, or unlovable, or we're not safe, or we're a victim. There's something wrong with me. But it can really be any other belief. It can be either positive or negative that we have about ourselves. We can also use the Unfindable Inquiry to look for objects. Pen, paperclip, laptop, literally anything can be looked for. Concepts, spiritual beliefs, even other people. We can use the Unfindable Inquiry to look for anything. If we can name it, we can look for it. It's called the Unfindable Inquiry because when we're really thoroughly and skillfully examining everything in our experience, we ultimately can't find what we're looking for. We see that nothing is as it appears to be or what we believe it to be. All we can ever find is thoughts, which are words and mental pictures, or body energies, which are emotions, sensations, any felt sense in the body. And when our identities relax, we can feel more open and spacious. We can have a sense of freedom and just a general okayness with our lives, not so strongly fixated and held onto these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. So the Unfindability Inquiries are first and second dimension work, and that we're both resting with and allowing all appearances to be as they are. And we're also digging, we're mining, we're using reverse inquiry, utility inquiry to get to the root of the beliefs and the identifications so that they can be seen and healed. Now, for me, when I'm working with clients on unfindability, I often combine all three of the inquiries. And I also often combine them with any other KI techniques, including repression and third dimension work. I just weave in anything that is appropriate. And it can have a profound effect and be deeply freeing when we work that way. So that's about unfindability. Let's talk about the Unfindable Inquiry itself. So this is the original inquiry that Scott developed. As I said, it involves looking for whatever we believe to be solid, real, separate. So it can be any deficient self. I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm not safe, I'm bad, I'm wrong. It can be any inflated self. I'm better than others, I'm better than them. I'm enlightened, I'm spiritual, however we take ourselves to be. But it can also be any identity we have as male, female, mother, father, sister, brother, parent, teacher, healer, facilitator, any way that we identify, and other people. So looking for Scott, looking for me, looking for facilitators, trainers, teachers, bosses, it's a good one. Even spiritual concepts like awareness, consciousness, truth, love, enlightenment, right and wrong, safe and unsafe. These are all concepts that can actually be looked for with the unfindable inquiry. And I think I mentioned objects, any spiritual generalizations. It's all one, nothing exists. A lot of that happens in spiritual seeking, right? All of that can be looked for in the unfindable inquiry. So how does it work? As with the Kilby inquiries, we're always only working with words, pictures, and body energies, right? And it's the Velcro of the three of those together that forms the identity, that makes things and the self seem so inherently real. In the unfindable inquiry, we're only asking one question on each of those elements. Is that the thing I'm looking for? Are those words the self I'm looking for? Is that picture the self I'm looking for? Is that body energy the self that I'm looking for? So we actually have to name what we're looking for before we can actually start this process. So we use the boomerang to name usually the deficient self. So for example, I'm triggered by something. Let's say my mother is critical of me. So the boomerang is I look at my mother and I feel the reaction in my body and I ask myself, what does it mean about me? I'm not good enough. I'm not actually feeling that right now, so I'm kind of making this up on the spot. But I've named it, right? That's my deficient self. I'm not good enough. That's who I absolutely believe myself to be. So whatever it is for you, when you look at something that's triggering, you do the boomerang. What does it mean about you? You want to look for that I am statement. I know there's other videos on the boomerang, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. But once you've named the self that you're looking for, now you go looking for it. Okay, so I can start with the words, I'm not good enough. I'm visual, so I can see words. Some people aren't, they're more auditory. So if you hear them, you just hear the sound of them. Now we don't want to rush through this process, right? Take your time, really spend some time seeing or hearing the words. Once you've done that, once you've given them some time to really let them be here, you ask the question, is that me? Is that the self I'm looking for? Are those words the person who's not good enough? Because remember, that's the only thing I'm doing. I'm looking for that person who's not good enough. That's who I believe myself to be. Now, the way to answer that is if there's a reaction in the body when I ask that question, that's a yes. So we're actually looking for the yeses just so that we know where to go. All it means is that I'm identified with those words. And I know that because I'm feeling something in the body. So I go to the body and I feel that energy in the body. And I give that some time. I welcome it. I allow it. And then I ask the question, is the feeling on its own? Is it me? Is it the person who's not good enough? I may feel like, yes, it is. The energy might get stronger, or there might be more words with it, or there might be some pictures of it, pictures of me that show up with it, or even pictures of the energy in the body. So if there's pictures, I'm going to go there. Hold the pictures out in front of me, give them space. Take your time with this. I know I tend to talk fast, but really take your time with it. Is the picture the person I'm looking for? Is that picture that I'm seeing just visually in front of me right now, is that the person who's not good enough? If there's a reaction in the body, it's a yes. Or maybe there are words that show up with it that makes it feel like a yes. It just tells me I'm still identified. So we're just following the flow of the words, the pictures, the body energies, taking our time, asking on each one, is that the self that I'm looking for? There's going to come a point where things will either start to relax, but we really want to go deeper. We want to bring in some mining questions, right? When's the first time I felt not good enough? Or what's the worst that can happen if I'm not good enough? Now I'm trying to get to the root, right? When's the first time I felt not good enough? I'm trying to uncover that crystallizing moment when that belief was formed, when that identity was formed, and I really believed that's who I am. So there may be memories coming up. Those memories are pictures. Excuse me, we watch the pictures, we allow them, stay present, give them space. And then ask the question, is the picture the person who's not good enough? Go to the body and feel if there's a reaction, or if words show up with it, you go there. We're just following whatever shows up in response to the question. What's the worst that can happen if I'm not good enough? Now we're trying to get to the deeper beliefs, right? I'm bad. No one will love me. Whatever the answers are that show up. It's going to be words, pictures, or body energies. Whatever shows up, you take your time with it. Welcome, allow, give plenty of space. And then when you're ready, you ask the question, is that the self who's not good enough? Okay. So you could also do a reverse inquiries. I am good enough. And then look for the disagreement to that. And go there. If there's a reaction in the body when I say I am good enough, that's a no, I don't believe that. I believe that I am not good enough. So we go into that feeling, welcome that, give that space. And is that the self? This feeling on its own, is it the self who's not good enough? You could also do utility inquiry. I don't get anything out of believing that I'm not good enough. Maybe I do. Maybe I get a sense of safety from it. So we would go there and follow that thread. Words, pictures, body energies. Now we typically start with words and then go to the body, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the feeling is just stronger. So just go there. It's totally fine. There's no really set rules on that. But you do want to look from presence, from awareness, bring in a lot of curiosity, and keep going, right? If you're still finding it, if you're still finding yeses, keep going. You're not done, because ultimately it's called the unfindable inquiry, right? So ultimately we can see that words are just words. They're not me. Pictures are just pictures. They're not the self who's not good enough. Anything that's happening in the body is just body energy, and it's all welcome and allowed, and it's not me. And that's where the freedom happens, when everything gets unvelcroed and I can see that none of this is actually the self that I'm looking for. And there's a lightness and a spaciousness that can happen. And when we release that sense of identity, you really have to trust the process, though. Stick with it. I know it can get a little tricky. Sometimes people want to force not finding something or force some kind of healing. If you trust this process and stick with it, it will do the work. You just stay present and allow everything that comes up. Do the mining, do the digging, get to the root of it. Follow all of that, words, pictures, body energies. And ultimately keep going until you see none of it's me. There's not someone here who's not good enough, and there actually never was. And then rest there. Rest in that for a moment. Really take that in. Right? You may have never felt that before. You may have always lived with this identity of not good enough. So allow yourself the space to really take in the experience of, that's not me. You can also just look for the self. I could look for Julianne, right? However I identify myself, even just my name. I can look at my name, is that me? So I will be making some more videos on this. I'll probably even do one of me self-facilitating each of these inquiries at some point. I'll get to these when I can, but I want to just get started with making some of these. I'd love to hear how you do with it. If you have any questions, you can post or reach out. Thanks.